Hi, I'm Owen from the English Folk Dance and Song Society, and I'm here with Martin Simpson and Dom Flemons, who are playing at Cecil Sharp House on the 15th of October. So, I'm sure most people know who you are, but do you want to just give a quick few-second introduction of who you each are?
Who are we?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I'm Martin Simpson, and I've been doing this job since I was 18 years old, which is an awful long time now, and I'm very fortunate that I get to work with some of the finest musicians on the folk scene from around the world, one of whom is Dom Flemons.
And I've been doing this for a few less years than Martin, but a couple of years. I started out playing in a group called the Carolina Chocolate Drops, founded that group, and recently I've been playing on my own. And one of the first ventures out in that has been working with Martin, and it's been just a wonderful, wonderful time.
Amazing. So how did you two come together as a duo?
It's your fault. It was the English Folk Dance and Song Society suggested that we should come to Cecil Sharp House and get together and do some exploration of the exchange that happens between Britain and the USA. And we did that, but actually what was very funny is we knew we had to get a show organised, and I called Dom in advance and said, look, I've got some ideas. It's just some material that I've always wanted to do. And we just started to laugh about 5 minutes into this conversation. I said, have you ever heard a song called Coal Man Blues by Peg Leg Howell? And Dom said,
oh, that was an amazing thing. It was a song that I've been wanting to do for quite a while, and it started from there and just kept building, where each song that either of us suggested happened to be a song that the other had wanted to do for a really long time. And so it also happened to be all of these songs in one form or another had this exchange between English and American music traditions, going from the earliest part of the blues and kind of how those early songsters and performers used English music hall material, and then vice versa, you had English music hall performers using some of this early blues material as well. And just kind of an interchange that we've seen it again and again, just over the decades. There's still an interchange that goes on now to this day. But to see this area of the 1890s all the way into the early 1920s going into the 1930s, it's just a fascinating period of time for both countries.
So when you get together, sort of the songs that you want to play, and you've got this sort of such a broad palette of musical sounds to work with from history, how did you go about actually putting together the performance as musicians?
That was the easy part, actually.
yeah, it was. Basically, I mean, the same thing just happened. I called Dom 10 days ago and said, hey, Dom, we're about to kick off again. I see you've been doing some work, on the Lead Belly situation. I said, I've always really wanted to do that song, Poor Howard, and it's like...
It happened to work out.
Silence.
I hosted a concert this year of Lead Belly's 125th anniversary at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. And I was host, and I did just one song in the show, and that was Poor Howard. And so it just has kind of been like that. So the actual music coming together has been a very easy thing, and with both of us being versed in a lot of different styles of traditional music, the arrangements have been very easy to put together as well, just because we're not, we both have a sense of what the other one's doing stylistically with their song, and then also having been backup as well as lead musicians at the same time, we know how to work with each other to bring the best out of both of us.
Do you find, as guitarists particularly, but in everything, that you have quite a lot of common musical ground? Because Martin, I guess you've got quite a big American influence already.
Oh, gigantic, yeah, huge. The first music that I fell in love with was American music. The first person that I ever heard sing that made me want to cry was Paul Robeson. American folk music is made up of the very stuff that I used to get told you can't do that. You can't play blues and English music and this and that. You can. It's all on the same palette. You just have to decide how much of the palette you want to use. And if you're serious about it, the other thing you want to do is not go around copying other people, but but make your own construction out of these colours on this fantastically broad palette.
It's something I was noticing during the sound check. You play plectrum banjo, is that right?
Mm-hmm, that's right.
Well, I'm not sure I've ever actually seen one played before without a fifth string like that. What's your influence there?
Well, that came from kind of that came from a friend of mine who had a 5-string banjo, and he was a guitar player. He didn't like the little string, so he took it out. And so I had it for a summer, and I had liked the sound of the banjo in the first place. But I really liked how the 4 strings sounded, the 4 and the long neck too. I had a tenor for a while, but I liked the long neck on the banjo and the 4 strings. Just something really resonated with me about that since I started playing guitar first before banjo. I learned how to claw hammer since then, but I still just play with 4 strings just because that's kind of what I like there. But there's a whole other tradition of plectrum playing and jazz bands and all that. And so I try to bring some of those ideas into it when strumming on the banjo. Take the old-time banjo, the jazz banjo, and then, of course, the banjo is an African-derived instrument that comes from either the memory or the or just actual instruments that people brought over on the slave ships, and then it's the quintessential American instrument. It became the banjo once it came into America, and that's something that's a whole history in itself.
I think that history is fantastic too in terms of race, because the banjo became associated with the bad old days, with bad old times. And I think it's true to say that in the States, black people rejected the banjo for a very long time and went, whoa, no, we ain't playing that. And one of the people responsible for reclaiming it is Dom, actually, which I think is great too. I mean, I've been playing the banjo since I was 13, and I've always had this feeling that this was, a proto-blues instrument, that you listen to Clarence Ashley and people like that. I always felt this sounded so incredibly black, And I got an album which I'm sure Dom is totally familiar with, called Black. It's a snappy title. Black Banjo Songsters of North Carolina and Virginia, which, as you can imagine, sold dozens of copies. And that's got, I think, 4 or 5 versions of the Cuckoo Bird on it. Mm-hmm. And the Cuckoo Bird is, Clarence Ashley's greatest hit, Hobart Smith's greatest hit. These white banjo players who were exquisite, but equally it was exquisite in the hands, I would say, the black guys that they learned it from. But then in the first place, the imagery of the cuckoo comes from an English folk song. So there we got it going again, Just keeps getting back and forth. It's great. It's fabulous.
So what have you two got planned for the next 12 months once this tour's out of the way?
Well, we're actually recording a lot of this. Mm-hmm. And next summer we're going to get together again and see what happens, Yeah. But what we're going to do is just, this is only the second day together, so we're just having a massive amount of fun putting the show together, making sure that actually, you've got half of the material is new, and we need to make sure that we actually know it, we know what we're doing. I think by the end of tonight, not would we will,
Absolutely. Well, for me, I have a trio that I'm working with where I have a bassist who doubles on fiddle as well as a drummer, and also I just keep on cranking away. I have an album that I'm working on celebrating the music of the Black Cowboys. A lot of people don't know that one of the 4 cowboys in the States was black, and just an album trying to bring that up to the forefront. And
I've been working with my trio as well, which is just such a joy with Nancy Kerr and Andy Cutting. And I have wagon loads of solo work coming up. I'm writing a bunch of material. Next spring I'll be working with Martin Taylor again, a great jazz player. Looking forward to working with Dom again, because all this stuff, is expansive. All of it is great for your chops, it's great for your musical ideas.
Yeah.
Last night we played a gig and a student of mine who I've been working with for years sat in the front row, and at the end of the gig he came up and he was shaking his head saying, I never thought I'd see you play in standard tuning. It's just really good fun. So it's all expansive, it's all fabulous.
Absolutely.